Ravens, perhaps the most controversial team in the NFL. Always an argument around the efficacy of the Ravens and Lamar Jackson and their approach and their strategy. 2021 came in with that 10 expected wins, similar to this year. Went under that. Of course, we're devastated by injuries. There was a chart that your buddy Arjun put together that really kind of demonstrated how outsized of an impact injuries had on the Ravens. It ended up going 8-9, 7-10 against the spread, lost $100 unit better on the money line spread, over $500. Pythag had them around 8 wins. Our Pythag 2.0, again, to my dismay, had them at 9.2. So suggesting that they're actually better than they actually were in the realized win total perspective. Because again, this is a team that I feel like no matter how injured they were, the market is relatively high on the Ravens, and for that reason, always kind of going to give them the benefit of the doubt, even if they don't necessarily perform well. But again, we're 5-1 going into week 7. Got blasted by the Bengals. Then came back, played the Vikings, didn't cover the 7, but ended up winning the game. Then looked really bad on Thursday Night Football versus the Dolphins. And that's when I feel like the cracks really started to show. And again, some of the injuries started to really catch up to them and ended up not making the playoffs, not covering their win total, again, despite a pretty promising start.
This is my bold call for the Ravens 2022. I don't think the offense is going to look anything like it did in 2021 because of the running back injuries. I think that the Ravens adopted a different style of play. Lamar Jackson both threw the ball out quicker and had a much higher passing depth, which is counterintuitive because you'd think generally the longer the play develops, the further you throw the ball. I think it actually speaks to the game plan, which was very quick throws and deep shots, because they did not really believe in their run game to kind of get the smaller yardage plays that they were doing, that they were enjoying previously. Which is almost to say that like they have their running backs healthy. The offense is not going to look like it did in 2021. I think it's going to look more like the 2019 version. More running, certainly a different passing style. I think the trade of Marquise Brown signals that, which is that they don't really care about who they're really throwing to. Back to those 2 tight end sets, and defensively, that's where most of the injuries were coming from. They lost the entirety of their secondary. It was Jamie Smith, Marcus Peters, Marlon Humphrey missed a bunch of time. Everyone was out. The defense is going to look nothing like it did in 2021.
Very little chance that the Ravens look anything like 2019. 2019, in my view, was one of those years that caught the league by surprise, and the league could just simply never catch up to it. Just could never adjust from a week-to-week basis of dealing with already whatever that team is dealing with, and then having 6 days to prepare or whatever for this offense. Just never happened.
Yeah.
But the Ravens, I've not really ever shown glimmers of that team.
To add some data using our new drive score metrics, they were by far the best team in the database, by far. Adjusted win differential of almost 12.3 points. The next is 11.7. And it's the Broncos in 2013 and Peyton Manning's prime year. That's not happening again. I think that's exactly to your point. That's not happening. And I think that if bettors are trying to chase the 2019 Ravens, that's going to fail. That model cannot be replicated, and it couldn't have even been replicated in 2020 or 2021, even if everything worked out perfectly. That's just a 1 percentile outcome that happened in 2019.
I think what's also, again, we can lament that they were very injured and ended up losing a bunch of these games, and maybe they're a better team than that. But they were pretty, again, they were banged up right off the bat. So we know that. But this Colts game was not a justified win. And then they needed a 65 all-time, greatest kick, longest kick ever from
Justin. After a 4th and 20 pass interference.
Yeah. And also when even on that 65-yard kick, there was a blatant false start.
No business winning that Sunday night game.
Oh, and that's another. Yeah, I totally forgot about this one. In fact, look at that mean margin too. Almost a touchdown, and ended up winning it.
Yeah.
So that's 3 games right there. So that's like, it's not a wash, but that mitigates some of this asterisk here of, yeah, well, they lost those last 6, but they're super banged up. Ended up winning 3 games in the front half of the season that they probably shouldn't have.
Yeah. Also week 9, looking at the mean margin, they beat the Vikings.
Jesus, I don't really remember this one, but that's hideous too. Yeah. Almost a touchdown again, mean margin. Win probability, 43%. End up being the Vikings.
I don't think they were that good, but I'll stand by. There's nothing to learn. The offense is going to look nothing like it. The defense is going to look nothing like this team.
One thing, though, not upgrade wide receiver in any shape or form. They're relying totally on Rashad Bateman to materialize into what they want him to be.
Yeah. I think the only signal to glean there, if you could find a bet which allows you to bet on which team is going to run the most 12 personnel, I'd take the Ravens here. Which is that the Ravens are going to run a ton of 2 tight end formations. They're going to use their backs. They're going to use their tight ends. It doesn't really matter who their wide receivers are. And that's their bet. Whether it's going to work is a totally separate question.
So we're looking at 2022 for the Ravens. Again, win total expectations at 10, to win the division plus 140, to make the playoffs minus 165. I would never touch that. Plus 2,000 to win the Super Bowl. I think that potentially has some value. I think it was higher in the offseason and has been bid down already. Our Pythag 2.0 model, no bet here. Strength of schedule, 11th easiest. Net rest, minus 3 days. And mean spread, less than a field goal, minus 2. You start off probably as best as you could ask for. Jets, Dolphins, Patriots. Then have a tough back-to-back games, but both at home, Bills and Bengals. And then you have Giants, Browns, Bucks, and Saints into the bye.
Depending what happens in that Patriots game, we're like, oh, this team's 2-3 with like 2 bad wins, like two wins over like non-quality team. This team's done. I can see that narrative playing out. I can also see them going 4-1 and just steamrolling over everyone.
Yeah, and if that's the case, then they're definitely going over, because you look at the back half of the season and it's much more favorable. So you have Panthers, Jags, Broncos, Steelers twice, Falcons, Browns, and then close at the Bengals.
I have a thesis on what the market's getting at right now that I think's come through in our conversation, which is that the central question around the 2022 Ravens is how much of 2019 can they capture? Are they going to be 70%? Are they going to be 80%? Are they going to be 90%? The market's like a little uncertain. They're pricing in kind of a mean outcome, which is where we get 10 from.
Yeah, see, I think anything close to 2019 is off the table. 50% best case. The team is always going to be in a position to show flashes, which I think is always going to create just enough amount of noise and just to keep the argument aflame. There's always going to be enough for that. I think they could do that in week 1. The Jets.
Also, they have a tendency to blow out opponents. Like when they win big, they don't take their foot off the gas pedal,
which ends up kind of distorting narratives.
I see this as a team that I'm going to be betting futures on, because there's going to be a lot of week-to-week volatility, a lot of just games where they show up, they don't show up, and I want a thesis that's going to play out over 17 games.
I want to have as little opinion on the Ravens on a week-to-week basis. It's like always like my long-term view on them is typically right.
Yeah.
But like in between, I can never time it properly. So given that's the case, I just stay away.
That's why I love futures.
That's why you have to keep me off the temptation of trying to like bet them on a week-to-week basis. Remember what you said in the preseason? So that wraps up our preview of the AFC North. We'll see you next week when we preview the NFC North. And then we're going to have to get into week 1 preview soon.
Oh, man.
Preseason's already behind us. That's coming soon. Thanks, everyone. That's closing bell.